Welcome to Techno Tortoise. This is a little deviation from what I normally do. Clearly it's not math, but I wanted to share with you my first attempt at sculpting with foam. So I wanted to make a staff to go with my costume for Comic-Con this year, and like everything else, you watch YouTube and think you can do it all. So let me walk you through the process. While my husband's cleaning up my workspace here, I do want to tell you, I'm going to start one and talk about the errors I made along the way because we learn from our mistakes. I started with a PVC pipe and I wanted to get just a little bend and some flow to the wood so it looked a little more natural. And you could see here I'm heating the PVC pipe up with the heat gun. I was way too gentle at the beginning. It was taking a long time and I was trying to bend it slowly. I do recommend the higher heat setting. Gloves are also a good idea, just you'll see here in a sec. But don't be afraid to put some force into it. I was trying to heat it up slowly and bend it a little bit, and the fact that I can touch it right there was probably a good sign it wasn't enough. But it did work. You can see it's starting now. I live in the Arizona, so it was also about 104 degrees out right then. So I had some pliability just because the natural heat. But you could see here, I became more focused on the heat. I turned it up a little bit and I worked in a smaller area. And what I found was that I could move it a lot easier with my hands. Hard to touch, but it started getting the pliability that I was looking for. And you can start seeing that kind of S shape forming. Also getting too hot to touch. So just be aware that it's not going to be as easy as it looks on the YouTube. It takes a little practice, but we got there eventually. Now I found that that kink that you saw there, they held the bend a little more when I hit the kink. And since I knew I was going to be covering it with the foam, I wasn't worried about that. Again, that's one of those, if you are worried about having that extra the notch there, go slowly. Where I go slowly, I didn't have the notches. So it's a balance. How much is it going to see? Now, like I said, I'm covering mine in a pool foam. So it was okay for me. So at this point, I got the shape that I wanted. It's the height that I wanted. And I had gone to the dollar store, and this PVC pipe, I want to say it was a 1/2 inch, fit perfect down the dollar store foams. So this is really why I started. I went ahead and I picked up the foam kit. That's what excited me about it. Is, oh, sorry, that's hashtag not my cat, Sir Fluffington. And those kits, the kit I got was a very basic $24. It comes with the head that you see here, which is good for basic sculpting, getting the large chunks off. And then it came with a long boring tool and a shorter defining tool you'll see me use later. I personally really like the kind of sculpting tool. It's good for getting a general shape. And I worked with it. I like that one. And then I didn't use the boring tool. My daughter, at one point, you don't really see her, but she uses the boring tool for making straighter lines. And at the talk that we had at the panel I went to, they also talked about straight lines are easier with the boring tool. So you saw briefly there that I had a mask. You need to wear a mask. At first I was like, nah, but my husband's pretty adamant about it, and it smelled. You can't tell, but I'm outside. You want to be in a very well ventilated area. You don't see the smoke here, but the more you do, the more buildup gets on there. There is a very nauseous fume that emanates from the materials as you're burning them. So most definitely well ventilated. Highly recommend outdoors. I tried it briefly indoors, and the smell, it instantly filled up my house. So you can see I slipped the pool noodle right over. The other thing you'll notice is I did not measure first. So always measure because I ran out of materials. One thing I want to note here, you're watching me build the top, and that is just again a dollar store light that I got. It's a solar light, so I can sit outside, and then at the Comic-Con when it was dark, it kind of lit up a little bit. I am currently in this using spray glue. Really bad idea. It ate the insulation foam, and I didn't realize it was going to do that. It was fine on the styrofoam from the pool noodle, but the other foam, it just ate away at it, and it was sticking. I used a little glue. It did stick. I finally got a kind of look that I was happy with here, and used the Dremel to get a little shape. I was so happy with it, but then I held it up to show my husband, and that's when it hit the fan. Literally hit the fan. So I had to start over. And what I noticed is when I learn from your mistakes, what you see here is I'm making those hands to go around the bulb. It's easier to sculpt them when they're not connected. So I sculpted them, used the heat gun to shape them, and then you'll notice that I'm using a hot glue gun to attach them this time. So that's why you see me doing the same thing twice, and I don't tend to hide my mistakes. I'd rather you learn from my mistakes than make them yourself. So I was much happier with this. I learned a lot from the first, and was able to get more of an organic shape to them, and they were considerably more stable. One of the things I'm going to note, the Dremel that I'm using, I started the first time I was using my husband's work Dremel, and I went and got my nail Dremel for doing my nails, and it has a much finer and easier to work with. So highly recommend getting the smaller one, and if you're doing smaller defined work. So here, remember I told you got two different heads. One is a boring head and one is for the detailed work, and that's what I'm using here. You can start seeing the stuff build up, and I have a wet sponge that I'm wiping it off with. That worked wonders, because I would do a little bit, wipe it off, and it'd start getting the deeper grooves in again. So each of those materials, I am going to tell you, they work differently. So the porous pool noodle, it resisted a little bit, where the foam that I got from the warehouse, it was like butter. So here you'll see I'm taking a hot glue gun. When you take the hot glue gun to a porous surface like that, it widens up those gaps and made them more defined, shrank it down the stuff, and it actually hardened it quite a bit. So highly recommend doing that, but know that those lines are going to become very defined. What you see me doing here is sealing it. I am using Podge. One of the things that they recommended at the Comic-Con was that you take wood glue and if you want it to be even more solid and fill in the gaps, then you could add baking soda to that to make it more of a paste. I wanted to keep that holes in the look. I liked that for what I'm doing, so I just used Mod Podge, sealed it up. If you don't seal it, the paint will just seep right in and the color will stay there. Notice I have like several different colors of pink going on there. So here, the black, it's actually a base coat. It's a sealant. I highly recommend you do at least 2 coats. I did 1 coat because I was in a hurry, and by this point it was about 105 out, so I wanted to get inside. And then I went over with some brown. I also wiped it off throughout. I'm happy with the results. I hope you are too. And if you have any ideas, give me a yell.